You remember well the summer of 2020. It was COVID summer. It was also the summer police officers killed George Floyd in broad daylight in Minneapolis. And it sparked a conversation about police violence against black people and what came to be called a summer of reckoning over race overall. That summer in New York, then Governor Andrew Cuomo launched an effort to reform police departments statewide. Every police force had to submit a plan to address racial bias in their work. In a lot of places, it was a lot of talk and not much change. In the Adirondacks, it begat a series of trainings for police officers. What those trainings are like today, on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Morja Wealth Management, serving the North Country for 3 generations. MorjaWM.com. Securities offered through Hightower Securities, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Hightower is an SEC-registered investment advisor. And Kinney Drugs, whose pharmacists offer routine seasonal vaccines for older adults, including senior dose influenza, COVID, RSV, and pneumonia. Details at KinneyDrugs.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, September 16th. First up, Governor Kathy Hochul has expanded her lead in a potential matchup next year against North Country Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. A Siena poll released today shows the Democrat leading the Saratoga County-based Republican by 25 points, 52% to 27%. That's up from 45 to 31% last month. The poll marks the first time Hochul has support from more than 50% of voters. Stefanik has yet to officially announce her candidacy for governor next year, and she says she won't until November. But she's been crisscrossing the state and launching broadsides against Hochul for weeks. Hochul's favorability is the best it's been since January 2024. The poll found a majority or plurality of voters believe Hochul works hard, demonstrates honesty, gets things done, provides decisive leadership, and cares about people. The poll also found about 1/3 of voters say crime in the state has gotten worse in the past year, down from 54% in December. Hochul says she's backing Zohran Mamdani for mayor of New York City, despite several disagreements. Jimmy Vilkine reports for the New York Public News Network.
Hochul is the highest-ranking state official to endorse Mamdani. She says her moderate politics don't always align with the Democratic Socialists' platform, but she wants them to work together.
I want to continue focusing on affordability, public safety, and making sure people know that this is a great state, it's a great city, and to work with whoever the next mayor will be.
Political observers say Hochul's endorsement could help her win progressive support as she seeks re-election next year. But Republicans are attacking. They say it shows Hochul is a radical, not a moderate. President Trump says he might withhold funds from the state. In Albany, I'm Jimmy Vilkine for the New York Public News Network.
Canton community leader and St. Lawrence County legislator Daniel Fay has died. Catherine Wheeler reports.
Daniel Fay died last Saturday at Canton Potsdam Hospital. He was 81 years old. He was an athlete, a Messina High School and Clarkson University wrestling champion. He was a member of the 1971 U.S. bobsled team. Fay coached and mentored athletes around the North Country. He was known as a pillar of the Canton community. Fay taught at SUNY Canton for 50 years before retiring in 2018. He also founded and co-owned the Hoot Owl, a well-known bar among locals and students alike. Fay, a Democrat, had been a St. Lawrence County legislator since 2016. His death leaves a vacancy on the board. On Monday night, Democratic legislators Margaret Haggard of Potsdam and Nicole Terminelli of Messina were appointed to a committee that will nominate someone to fill the role. The vacancy must be filled within 45 days. The full board will have to approve the replacement. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
The Adirondack Diversity Initiative, a project of the Adirondack North Country Association, has trained more than 160 officers and forest rangers in community policing, de-escalation, and bias awareness. Director Tiffany Ray Fisher told David Escobar the trainings also focus on police officers' own concerns and their own trauma. She said part of what makes them effective is they're led by a former police officer.
So one of the things that is really helpful is that the person that is doing the actual facilitation really understands the stress and what the day-to-day is for these officers. We've had DEC rangers, we've had state troopers, we've had detectives, campus police, correctional officers. It's all voluntary, but we've had a really wonderful response. Some of the feedback that I thought was interesting is that a lot of times they don't get to interact with each other. So creating a space in which all the information that they're learning is the same, but how they're able to implement it and use it is very different. When an officer is called to the scene, you are probably meeting this person on the worst day. Like, you're not calling 911 on a good day. How you interact with that person makes a big difference. We were talking with, there was like rookie police, like they were like first year that were talking about kind of taking someone's stories. And the detectives were like able to say, if you all don't do your jobs well, by the time they get to us, they're not going to say anything. And there was like an aha moment, because we were talking about like first points of connection and how crucial that is, and that there is actually a symbiotic relationship between the people that are calling the police and the police trying to get information out so that they can actually move forward, right? And reach a place of resolve for themselves and for whatever the situation is.
What other aspects of policing, doing the work of a police officer, are brought up in these training sessions?
We have a session on trauma. That used to be the second section, and now it's the first section. And we start with talking about trauma, not from the victim's perspective, but from the police perspective. When we switched that component and started with the trauma and allowed them to just take a beat for us to be like, we see you, right? We also understand that one bad apple kind of like spoils the bunch, and that there's been a bad rap and you are feeling that you're having to make up the difference for someone who did something in one of the Carolinas that has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with the region, but you're getting the splashback. So I think just coming from that perspective was really helpful in kind of getting rid of the tough person persona, because at a certain point it's going to break, and that's not helpful. We do in our society need these positions to be filled. We need them to be filled with healthy people that are physically and mentally healthy. And the second section, which I think is like one of my favorites, it talks about the history of policing, and it talks about the history of protests and what is the job of the officer within that. And that session, I feel like there's a bunch of aha moments. We can have these dialogues and these conversations that a lot of people, I think, are so afraid of saying the wrong thing, so afraid, just fear, right? Just fear across the board, however you want to define it. We don't have these conversations, and we're not able to just speak freely, and we're not able to like learn the lesson. Like, if we're out here trying to learn, not every time are you going to get 100% of the learning. But if you get 60%, it's 60% more than what you had before.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the feedback you've heard from officers?
Yeah, the biggest feedback that we've received is like, I wish I had this in the academy. I wish I had gotten this sooner. And so that is actually working really hard. That's our next big step, is to see if we can do that. If we have people that have been on the force for 20 years, and this is the first time that they're having any of this information, right? But there's something about uniformed knowledge in the sense of like, if everyone is getting this coming out of the academy, and even if we're not able to get it in the academy, but if we're able to get this like year ones, if everyone outside of year one is able to get this training, what we've heard in how it alters behavior in a positive way that goes both ways, right? Because I think the thing that people forget a lot of the times is that our law enforcement members are part of our community. They're not other. And what's really wonderful about this year, this is its fourth year, is that now we've been able to survey officers and their higher ups about the behavioral change of those who have gone through the program and how they feel it is affecting their day-to-day. To hear it from them and to hear it from their chiefs, it really was like, okay, this is actually moving the needle. So for us, we really do want to scale this up to make sure that there is a good percentage, that like 50% of all law enforcement in our 14 counties have gone through that. That's enough to really tip by a lot.
That was David Escobar speaking with Adirondack Diversity Initiative Director Tiffany Ray Fisher. Music today by Mark Corey of Watertown and the Saranac Project of Saranac Lake. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.